In this episode, we're going to explore how strategic innovation, diversification, and a relentless focus on franchise success can reignite growth and redefine an industry.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Joining me today is Tom Dowd. He's the president and CEO of functionalinspiredtraining.com. And again, there's a lot you can learn about him online, but stepping in as the CEO in 2023, Tom has led a major transformation, boosting global performance, launching new concepts like FS8 and Vora Pilates. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Make sure you let me know. And expanding the F45 into a full spectrum wellness brand. Tom, welcome to Fordify Live.
Hi, Ford. It's really great to be here, and I'm really excited to tell our story. And thank you for the setup.
Well, thank you so much. And so I knew you guys back as F45 Training, but now you've got this parent company, Functional Inspired Training. And so if you're watching this right now, we're live on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places. And the audio from this episode also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So if you're looking, you can go to functionalinspiredtraining.com and just check him out. And there's also, if you're watching it, his t-shirt has all the logos on it. So Tom, so tell me, you took over in 2023. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into franchising.
Sure. Well, we've been investors now for almost 6 years, myself and a group put together 110 million, that's public. And we just fell in love with the brand F45. We did a workout in London. I couldn't believe the community and the energy in the studios. And then lo and behold, we had a meeting in the back room of the Ellen Show, believe it or not, with the actor Mark Wahlberg, who was an early investor. And we just ran towards the opportunity to invest. So that's how we got into it originally. And then COVID happened, and then COVID stopped, and our studios really ramped up fast, and the decision was made to go public. COVID was no fun to live through, especially when you're in a restaurant business and the gym business. But we were really blown away by the success and the speed in which F45 recovered. So we went public, and then we just didn't have the right management in place. So making a very long and painful story shorter, at some point I decided with some support from some folks, other investors, that it was time for me to just step in and start doing things myself rather than being just a board member / investor. So my background at General Nutrition Company, GNC, 25 years there growing up, a lot of locations, both corporate and franchise locations, about 8,600 locations at our height at GNC. So I had a lot of experience, and everything pretty much ran up through my organization, operations, merchant, the whole, real estate, licensing, you name it, it was all underneath my umbrella. So, my background was perfectly suited. And then 13 plus years of just private equity investments, obviously buying brands and, fixing them and being a part of that exciting life that, I enjoyed. So we've been investing in a lot of things. So anyway, I put the jersey on and got on the field and started kicking ass. And, we just were very enthusiastic about the opportunity to come on as the CEO. We knew we had an amazing community. We knew we had just a product that couldn't be touched by anybody else. So it was just very frustrating to see how mismanaged it was at some point. So to fix it was pretty easy, quite frankly, because a lot of basic things needed to happen. So we started there, and then we just started really working on our strategy. And that's when we added the Pilates business to our Fit family of products. So now we have 2 Pilates businesses, a soon to be announced recovery business, which is cold plunge and sauna, called the Ion. And of course, the bread and butter is the F45, which continues to grow and do well.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us on the show today. I love hearing stories of yours, especially, because we've got listeners that are entrepreneurs, we got franchisees, franchisors, we have other private equity groups, investors, and all across the board. And it really comes down to the takeaways and the lessons. And if you're listening to this episode right now, everybody, if you listen to the what he's talking about is the fundamentals, right? I mean, you looked at this and said it was easy. Now I'm sure the other people that were before you, I always say it's easy for those that know what they're doing. Like when I'm working with a vendor maybe it's video production or something, because I run a digital marketing agency too. So maybe I'm looking for a freelance photographer or videographer to go film one of my keynotes, because I'm an opening keynoter for a lot of conferences. And so when I work with those vendors, I'll say, now, this is easy for someone with the experience that knows how to film events. Like I always have to say, it's easy, but only if you've got the experience, right? And I think that that's where it comes down to is business owners, franchisees, they struggle with the difference between operations and finance and sales and marketing and the customer experience. But you guys have really built a solid brand in what you're doing with your other brands. So I know what the Pilates brand is. Tell me, and I know what F45 is. Tell our listeners a little bit about what FS8 is.
So FS8 is yoga, toning, and Pilates all combined.
Okay, so that's going to be, it's got different than Vora then?
It's different from Vora. Vora is a purely reformer workout.
Yep.
Very high energy, lights, mirrors on the ceiling, high energy athletic workout. FS8 is kind of our workhorse. So the first thing we never want to be is another Me Too brand.
Right.
So when I took over, we had both of these concepts sitting there, but they were, like most things that weren't the bread and butter, just kind of sitting there stagnating. So first thing I did was recognize right out of the gate the low intensity, training was hot. Pilates is red hot. And we had two big businesses sitting there, just nobody doing anything with. So we put our back into making the workouts even better, putting the resource behind those concepts, i.e., the websites, redoing the websites, the app, training, looking at the workouts, getting member feedback. So we did a lot of studies and got a lot of feedback from them. I'm a big believer in let the members tell us what they need and what they want. Because we work for them, that's where it starts. And to the team's credit, I mean, within 4 months, we were ready to go, and we put our back right into getting behind the Pilates business. And it's been a slam dunk for us, quite frankly. We're just thrilled with the success and the membership growth, and just the experience that our members keep going crazy about when they come into our studio. So for us now, it comes down to how do we market hard and heavy enough to get people into the studios? Because once they get in, we're crushing it. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've done a lot of work in the Pilates area. My wife is a Pilates instructor, certifies other Pilates instructors, just has a studio here. She's had for like 30 years. And, and I worked with the PMA, the Pilates Method Alliance. And so, but it was interesting because before I started figuring out what Pilates was, I just thought it was yoga. Right. And I know you guys run into the same thing. People will say, check out Pilates, and I'm like, oh, it's yoga. And it's such a different full functional body. And what I like about what your brands are is you're really looking at the whole body health. I mean, you're not just doing the fitness, but you're doing the functional movement. And now you've got the cold plunge. Now that's really interesting because that's something I've been really looking into is, is there a franchise that I can just go to and do a cold plunge, or do I go on Amazon? Do I go on, TikTok and find a unit? Now I went to Sam's the other day, and now Sam is selling cold plunges. It's like, so I know it's only, people don't want to do it at home. I mean, like me, I probably got 10 grand worth of fitness equipment. I won't even mention all the crap I have, or all the great tools that I have, but I want to go somewhere. Like I want to go to like the F45 training and be told what to do. I want a coach to guide me. And that's why I think your brand has been so successful, because you have the workouts, you've listened to the audience or your target prospects. What are some of the things that maybe surprised you during this growth phase that you didn't know, that you heard from your customers to add that you maybe weren't thinking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very timely, because we just are launching our squat racks into F45. With GLP-1, which we embraced for a multitude of reasons, starting with the fact that building lean muscle mass when you're on these drugs is critical. So we want to be their go-to solution headquarters for everybody on GLP-1. So that was a great move for us to introduce the squat racks. And then number two, a lot of people on GLP-1 are now getting the courage to come into a gym for the first time, or maybe in 20 years, because they've lost 30 pounds and they feel better about themselves. And now they know they want to continue that fitness journey. So they want to get in better shape. So we are messaging and marketing towards them, but we're focused on how do we now enable the folks that love the F45 workout, but also want to continue to focus on building more dense, lean muscle mass by doing the squats and doing heavier weights. So not only do we have the high intensity then, so now we have over 250 studios now with the actual squat racks in the studio. So that was the one thing, to answer your question, that I was surprised that was kind of something that was bubbling up. In my training, quite frankly, at GNC, I learned as CMO and EVP and general manager that the key to winning for us was always to act fast, to be there first, rather than try and invent things and kind of force it on our customers, because that was always a much tougher proposition. That training and background, always is really made me the king, if I could be so bold, of spotting opportunity and reacting fast. So that's kind of got us to where we were. And really, the first reaction when I first came on as CEO, when a couple of studios were found to have some squat racks in it, well, that's not part of the system yet. We need to go and default them and go after them. And my first reaction was, which is, really interesting for the team to learn, was, well, wait a minute. Why are they doing it? Like, we should learn why they want to put a rack in this there. And that's what started this. So just that shift in always trying to pull information to learn was really critical for the team. And, kind of everybody stepped back. So, oh, that makes sense. We should understand why. So that was a good training exercise, I guess, for the entire team.
Yeah, I think having feedback loops from your franchisees, whether it's through a franchise advisory council or the feedback loops, but not everything works. I know my only GNC story was maybe when you were CEO, but this was years ago. I was at a franchise group. It wasn't for GNC. I was opening the keynote, but there were some GNC owners in the group. And one of them said something like, well, I don't understand why we can't offer lottery tickets at a point of purchase. And I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but and I'm like, you can't do that. And they're like, well, we have so much traffic. I don't see what the problem is. I can generate some extra revenue. And I'm like, well, the problem is that if someone comes into your GNC and tries to get a lottery ticket and then they're traveling and they go into another GNC and they don't see it, then they're going to blame the brand. I said, you got to follow your systems. And even me as a keynote speaker, and I mean, I wrote a book called Accelerate that goes to franchise brands. So a lot of brands will give them this book because it goes with them. It's marketing and local marketing that is incongruent with their systems, right? And I always tell them, follow your system. I mean, the biggest challenge I've seen in franchising for all the brands I've worked with is if the franchisee would just buy into the system and follow the system and not try to buck the system. It's okay to communicate and to give feedback, but most of the time follow it. I just did an opening keynote for Home Helpers Home Care. It's a service business. And I was sitting the night before at the dinner and I'm sitting next to two franchisees. They're both pretty new. And I said, so tell me, what's the biggest challenge you're facing? And one guy said, well, I've had my franchise for 6 months now, and corporate just isn't doing enough. I see all the competitors advertising and they're not doing enough to drive business into me. And so I asked him, I said, when was the last time you went to a chamber meeting? When was the last time you went out in your community? When was the last time you sponsored a sports team? When was the last time? So I started going through this list of questions. He had done nothing. And I said to him, I said, look, I'm a third party endorsement for the brand, but you have to take personal accountability for the own relationships. Yes, the national brand's going to have something, but you've got to take personal accountability. And so what I learned by doing this for so many years is I'm a third party endorsement. So it's interesting. I can come in and say something that the brand's been saying forever. And I was telling my wife this the other day and she's like, yeah, Ford, it's just like when you come home and you start talking about keto or cold showers or high intensity workouts or wearing a heart rate monitor. She said, I've been telling you this for 30 years. So, sometimes we have to hear the message from someone else.
No, you hit on a lot of great points. I mean, I could regale you for hours with stories of things I've walked into in retail, growing up in retail. I grew up in a supermarket business, and we had a store really fast in San Francisco that had a big beer cooler in a GNC.
Yeah,
I said, "What are you doing?"
Right.
And they're arguing, and the regional sales director backed it. Yeah. As that we're selling a ton of it. It's generating money. We ring it through the register, and you guys get profit. And I went to the regional sales director and said, are you out of your mind? It's not always about profit. It's brand integrity and standards. And it just blew my mind. That RSD didn't last long because there were other problems, but that was a big tip off that there was a critical breakdown in the understanding of what the business should be and look like. So that was one, extreme example of somebody that kind of went off the rails and tried to justify it just for the bottom dollar. But it comes down to standards, and really you're always going to win if you play by the rules, try and improve the game, like I always tell everybody, there's no bystanders. Like everybody, regardless of title, how long you've been here, I expect to bring ideas to the table. It's not a nicety. I expect it. And we work for the members. So if you're a franchisee in the system and you have ideas, go about it the right way. Because we're all ears here. Maybe not before, but now we're begging you for ideas. So let's do it the right way. Let's put it through the test. Like even with our spa system now with the Ion and the recovery business, we found Sunlighten and Chili Goat are our two partners now for the infrared sauna. And like we went through probably 30 folks that we went through and looked at the products and had samples, and we landed on with both with really good products. With our cold plunge, we kind of started with one and found out it wasn't working, and we pivoted really fast. So to your point, not everything works. Like even though we put everything through a meat grinder, we still didn't land in a great place with one vendor, and then we moved fast to get somebody better. So Chili Goat's now our cold plunge provider. So you'd be shocked at how much you learn just by asking questions, number one, and then listening, number two. And a lot of people just don't do that, even just doing business reviews and just kind of paying attention and constantly writing notes and listening to what people say. Even little things they mention may not be, you kind of dig in and ask that second question, right, Ford? Like a lot of people don't ask the second and third question. Well, wait a minute. What did you mean when you said that? Like, what does that exactly mean? I don't quite understand it. And then all of a sudden something else opens up into a big opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I speak and train, so I do keynotes, I do high-end coaching, consulting, and strategic, and I sit on some boards. My background's in business growth because I invented products that a lot of people have bought in childcare, automotive, and healthcare, and sporting goods. And so along the way, I learned that the more I know I don't know. And so asking questions, I always tell people, if you're asking the wrong question, then the answer doesn't matter. Right. So like I told the franchisee that I was sitting next to, I said, look, the question isn't how can I get the national to do more advertising? The question is, what can I do? What is the highest and best use of my time? What can I do with my attitude, my allocation of time, and my actions? What are you doing? And if you track it, it's just like me. I grew up as a speed skater. I was national ranked. And then I became a pro cyclist on categories 1 through 5. I was a 2. I wasn't like Lance Armstrong, but I was a 2. And then I started a sporting goods company. And I went from 168 to 268, Tom, because I was eating the same way I was when I was training 50 hours a week, right? And and I'm married to someone in health and fitness. She has her own studio. We have a Jacob's Ladder. I have an Orange Theory Fitness membership because I spoke for them. I have an Anytime Fitness membership. We don't have an F45 here in my city, but I like the group aspect of being told. But it's interesting because it's not the tool, it's the application, right? I think everybody listening to this has resources. They know what to do, that they're just maybe not executing. So when I wake up in the morning, I always ask myself, okay, how can I execute more effectively? Because it's not what I know, it's how well I execute. I know what to do. I control the fork, which is interesting because I knew I was going to talk to someone fitness today. So I got my protein shake out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a good dinner tonight at Texas Roadhouse, but I'm going to have a protein shake. And surprisingly enough, I just started GLP-1 and I was against it forever. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm an athlete. I don't need to do that. I just started it. So I'm only on week 4. So far, no side effects, but I'm like impatient. Like, it's like, I want to wake up the next morning, and that's why I think you gave me a good tip, even as the host here, is I'm just going to go back and start doing more weight training. Cause, I was doing it a few years ago. I got my back squat. I was doing 415 pounds and my deadlift was 500 pounds. So I have been lifting, but I haven't been doing it in a long time. And so I worked out the other day and I only had 30-pound weights in each hand doing a deadlift. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to start all over.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's impressive. Yeah, listen, I battle weight. I was really heavy into lifting heavy and same thing. Then all of a sudden I'm on the road all the time and I'm still hungry, eating the same way. Out to dinners 4 or 5 nights a week with vendors and partners and making deals. And like all of a sudden, you're tired the next morning. So you skip your workout. That creates that vicious cycle. So the good thing about now taking on this active role, I've gotten in better shape. I'm working out 6 days a week. I bought a home sauna. I was cold plunging. I'm lifting and doing the exercises with that 45. I started yoga here in my house. a little bit. So, being over 60 now, it's more important to really focus on my health and keeping my weight down and everything else. But yeah, again, it's just a great example of, people think they need to be in shape to go work out. Yeah, that's the one great thing about F45 and or FS8 and Vora. Like, let us help you get there. Like, we'll get you in shape. And what you mentioned with F45, you can go at your own speed. Like, I have a very bad shoulder. Like, I had a surgery on it, and like, I can't do a lot of things at F45. So I just work around it, which is very easy. You just tell the trainer, "Hey, I have a really bad shoulder. I can't do this or that," and they'll come over and help you and give you another exercise if you need to. So that's a real beauty about us, as opposed to our competition, who you're locked in. There's a lot of treadmill fatigue and rower fatigue out there. So for us, it's like so beneficial to have the variety and the ability to just pivot and do what you want, even if you just beat up that day and you don't feel like doing it as hard as you normally do. You just do it at your own pace, which is awesome.
How do you work with the different brands? So are your franchisees now? So F45 was, you've got what, 1,600 locations or something like that?
Right around here, yeah.
And so how has it been with your franchisees that you now have partnership brands? Are they looking at becoming multi-brand owners, or how has that been received in your family of franchises?
Yeah, so really the reason we started that was the number one reason was to give our franchisees more opportunity to grow within their market while cannibalizing, their F45. So that's point number one. So now people can have a sister location that complements F45 and vice versa, because you cross-pollinate your marketing, you get better efficiencies for your marketing and operations. So the holy grail for me now, which is happening, is moving from a small footprint, call it 2,000 square feet, to 4,000 plus square feet, and having the different modalities together. So you get better positioning in your center, you get better cost per square foot, you get more marketing horsepower, like I said. So instead of being tucked in the back because the landlord really doesn't care about a small footprint, now you're eating up more space. So if you have Pilates, F45, recovery, and even our retail business stores now in the middle, now you're taking up a lot more real estate, and that gives you a lot more negotiation skills with your landlord, because landlords love our business because we're a destination, right? So they're coming to us. Not unlike buying sneakers, you buy maybe a pair a year. You're coming to us 4 or 5 days a week, if not more. So that's why we're a good draw. So you come to our location as a landlord, and I'm going to stop in and get coffee, or I'm going to get a smoothie, or whatever. So we're a great story. And then with retail struggling in totality, including like GNC, we're a great solution, because the health and wellness space continues to grow year over year. It's never going to go away, right?
Right. It's only, because I'm 63, and I'm probably going more now than I did. Probably from 50 to 60. I don't know what phase I was in. I mean, I worked out a little bit, but now I'm like going, okay, I want to be able to put my overhead and I still want to be active, right? And so I'm really doing a lot more.
Yeah, well, listen, I just turned 62 April 13th. So, you struggle with getting old, and you're still shocked that you are the age that you are. But, listen, quality of life and being fit, like, all my numbers are great. I'm still strong. It's just, now I just need to keep the weight down and keep getting better, because these are the years, every year is like putting money in the bank, right, to help you with quality of life. Because believe it or not, longevity is not the number one issue. It's quality of life.
I agree. I would agree to that. Yeah.
So mobility, and a lot of great studies, again, with leg strength, so bottom strength, from your glutes down, being so important, because people don't realize, like, being mobile and having the agility and balance. When you fall, when you get older, that's bad news, right? So the statistics are very high of mortality once you break a hip, for example, when you get older. So bone density, mobility, balance, those things all tie together, very important for you. So really working out, even if you start when you're 65, whatever, it's never too late, because you could always build muscle mass, you could always build bone density, and just being more strong and nimble. That's always going to be a benefit for you. So quality of life and being able to move and go, like, last night I went up and played 9 holes. It's just incredible. There's like a 80-plus-year-old gentleman up there I've known forever, walks the course. It's funny. He parks in the handicap by the club, but he walks the course.
Right, of course.
argue with him. Like there's 5 spots, and he's the only one who ever used them anyway. But it's just funny to me. But he walks every day, plays 9 and walks it, so it's great.
Yep.
But that's as opposed to somebody else that's having trouble walking up the stairs. But as he tells the story, he's been walking and walking like 6,000 steps a day for 40 years. So that's how things like that pay off when you get older.
Yeah, it's money in the bank. So when you look at your family of franchises, as you got new, you've got emerging, you've got mature brands. What is a challenge that your franchisees are facing? Doesn't mean you're not already overcoming the challenge, but what do you see on the horizon that some of the challenges that might face your franchisees?
Well, I guess the first place is when you're in a high growth category, you're always going to have competition. So the franchisees have to understand that they have to be better than the competition. They have a better product, but then how do you amplify that better product? So, when I walk into studios that are not performing great, and you look at and the windows are dirty, and then the trainers, high turnover trainers, and you can feel the energy is just kind of flat. Then you talk to the franchisee, and they're not focused on Google reviews, for example, and they're not training the trainers properly, and they're only in there a couple days a week. Okay, that's why when you flip one to a good operator, things blow up, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, magic!" No, it's 101 stuff. Again, it's just putting you back into what's important. But when you walk into a studio that's doing well, the franchise operators all over cleanliness training, Google reviews, workouts, they read the emails, they know all the programs that we're doing, they're engaged, they're doing the high rocks, they're putting the squat racks in, because they're hitting on all cylinders. So it's always just interesting to, and you could spot it a mile away, just even, I could see it just walking to the front door, like what the experience is going to be. Do they have window signs up? It's just, so many missed opportunities that people, and sometimes they just need to be reminded, like you said earlier, sometimes they just need to, they're in the weeds and they get all frustrated and they just don't step back. And that's where somebody from the outside can come in and go, well, you have a lot of visibility here. This parking lot's jam busy and you don't have any window signs up. And quite frankly, we know what F45 means, but not everybody else does. Why don't you have window signs? Right. And you're right, but I didn't want to spend the money on the window signs. Listen, that's nothing. You're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. So let's get focused on the things that really ring the bell, which is telling people why they should come to us. Tell them who we are and get them in the door. Because once we get them in the door and work out, we're going to win. So a lot of those opportunities with staying focused on beating the competition, and really screaming that we have a better product. And I guess the other thing is that you get frustrated with is. The system's not used to us doing as many things as we have been over the last 2 years since I took over. So sometimes just imparting information and getting them to react has been a little frustrating. We didn't know, we didn't read the email, or we didn't see that. So a lot of that. But we're getting better. So every month they get better. We kind of consolidated the emails and got everybody now trained to read and look for information, because we've done a lot in the last 2 years. If you just follow our press releases and, just a lot of good things. We've done a lot of great partnerships. We just announced a Red Bull deal, which is great for us because they're just a marketing machine. Yep. So we just love partnerships like that because for us to take advantage of our amazing community, membership community and franchise community, and have us participate in a lot of their genius marketing, and sell the products in the studios and everything else. But really having a great partner like them and getting them involved in the fitness space with us is a win.
Yeah, I know for me, when I get hired, I do a pre-event call with the leadership and I ask them, what are the top challenges you're facing? And it's always in 2 categories. It's either, it's 3 categories. It's staffing. Sometimes they have really good business, but they need to get well-maintained staff and build a strong team and communicate it so that people, follow the system. Or it's going to be on the customer experience side. And so I mystery shop before I go in. And so it's interesting because I'll mystery shop the franchisees and I'll find out that the company communication, they have a 40% open rate on their email. So 60% of their whole franchise community isn't even reading the newsletters and they're not opting in for the weekly calls or whatever the brand's doing. And then I'll show up and I'll see, signs in the window from Christmas and it's June, I'll see, and especially in the fitness brands, because I've worked a lot with the fitness brands, it really comes down to is the location clean? If you just walk through as a customer, as a prospect, is it clean? Is the equipment well maintained? You know, is everything working, or are there out of order signs on a bunch of things, or ripped fabric? And then is it friendly? Is it someplace that you want to go in? And it's interesting because a lot of times, I know you've dealt this as a CEO of multiple brands, Tom, it really comes down to the fundamentals. I mean, for anybody listening to this today, you know, go back to your business, look at what is your marketing message, who's your target ideal customer, and you don't just want more customers, you want higher value customers. And then how do you increase the average transaction? How do you add more value? It's not about more money, but what I like about you with the multi-unit, having a franchisee that can actually add the other brands into the bigger space. Like you said, the landlords appreciate it. The customer experience is what's really going to be great, because now the customer has choices, and they can bring their friends, their family. Like my wife, she wouldn't do high intensity, but she would go, even though she's a Pilates instructor, she loves to take Pilates classes from someone else, because she's just not the one who has to do all the training and the coaching and the correction, as she would call it. Sorry, I want to be careful there. But it really comes down to, you know, mystery shop. How are the phones get answered? And it's always amazing. I do a lot on AI right now, not from AI like technical, but for businesses. And so one of the things I do in all my keynotes is I give them the prompt for their Google reviews, because it's interesting. I'll pull them up on the screen live, and I'll say, what city are you in? And they'll say, you know, San Diego. So I pull up San Diego F45 or whatever, and I'll look at the Google reviews. And one, they either don't answer them at all, and sometimes they're paying a third-party service, but they're not really answering. Or two, they answer it with, "Thank you for your feedback. Well, it's very important." On a 1-star review, "Thank you for your feedback. It's very important." And I'm like, you're not even differentiating. And so I give them a prompt. I give all my audiences a prompt that they can put into ChatGPT, which builds them on the brand standard. And then they just take the review, put it into ChatGPT. If it's a negative review, put it into ChatGPT, and it gives them the responses. And the franchisees walk away like, that was so amazing. But they just don't know what they don't know, right? They're trying to make it harder than it needs to be, right?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, part of my winning strategy is just being in the weeds instantaneously. Yep. I looked at this business when I took over as a customer and a franchisee. So I signed up to become a franchisee, and I signed up to be a member, and I went through the entire process, and then started hammering the team on my feedback. Like a lot of those examples, like, this is a miss. This language is terrible. Like, we're not getting across our message properly. Like, this is lazy. So I say constantly, and I believe it and live it, it's 1,000 little things every day. You know, people, you know, think, you know, little things matter, in other words. So every little decision and word and language, everything matters to me, and it all adds up fast. So you can't do everything right, but if you're working hard to try and do everything right, you're going to get there a lot faster. So I get in the weeds. People are like, "Oh, is that you really answering this email?" Yeah, it's me on LinkedIn. It's me on email. I'll answer the phone. Because listen, you know, when you check your ego, you're going to get a lot further down the road as well when it comes to getting it done. So for me, it's worth my time to spend time talking to franchisees and listening to them and reading their emails. I don't have time to follow it all the way through sometimes, but I started going, and I have a great team now who really know how to execute. So that's key. So everybody's passionate. The one great thing I should say about the health and wellness space, especially in the fitness side of it now, is you can find a lot of very passionate people, because to commit to your health and wellness takes dedication and drive, right? So that nicely crosses over in our space. So people that work for us, it makes it easier to hire people because it's a great experience, right? You love people, right. You want to be involved in helping change lives and improve people's lives and take a proactive role. It's very rewarding. So, you know, we're lucky to have an amazing team here who have the battle scars now of, you know, kind of going public and all that drama, and now with new management, because change is always tough. I try and be very direct and upfront, but I'm also aggressive and demanding even. But they always know I'm fair. And like I tell everybody, you know, listen, I work for you. Like, my job is only to make your job easier. Right. My job is here to expedite what needs to happen. But I also expect you to do what I need and be timely and aggressive and do the things I need. So the culture is us. So we need that culture. And then we always say that we work for the members first. Like, so what do we do? Because it's crazy to say out loud, but the mentality here wasn't that we work for the franchisees even, so we do. Like if they're not successful, we're not successful.
Exactly.
So
right.
Yeah, but as simple as that sounds, the arrogance of everything here was just, and again, when you have a great product and you're just selling hand over fist, you kind of lose that commitment to the field. So maybe because I grew up in a family business, I take everything so personal. And so just like I get upset. I mean, I've cried listening to franchisees who are in a tough spot, like on a call, because it's hard to listen to people because I grew up in a family business. I started, I have a sports nutrition company was started and other entrepreneurial ventures. And, I've seen what competition can do when you don't pay attention, like my father's supermarkets. So I've lived it, and then even at GNC in the early days, like competition was crippling. And then at the end, we saw what Amazon and Costco's and just, everything else did to us when we didn't pay attention and we couldn't pivot fast enough to lower our and get more aggressive and do what we should be doing instead of chasing margin percent. So again, this all plays into how do you become a better person from a management standpoint, because you have the experience and you have the natural skill set in many cases, then learn skill set to really, expedite and take advantage of something like an F45, Vora, and FS8 when you have the opportunity, because this all just so played together for me. And I believe in fate. And when Darren from Kenny Lewis sat me down and then we had the phone conversation about taking over, something triggered in my mind that I really dig his energy and what he's saying to me. And even though I don't necessarily want to be the hands-on guy, I'm going to do it. And once I say yes to something, I'm a 1,000,000% in. And so it's just been amazing. So fate's a funny thing, but it's great to see everything pulled together the way it has. And really, we've exceeded expectations. And again, it helps when you have an amazing product and team.
Well, I really appreciate this as we get ready to wrap up the episode. It made me think of something. It's about having a success library, right? You start with your internal tools, and then you look at what tools you need to do, because there's no excuses. There's information, there's resources out there. So as a franchisee listening to this, one of your action steps, go back and look at your learning management system, your onboarding, your training, your sales and marketing playbook. Go look at the tools that your franchise brand has offered you. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, are you using it? One of the things we're doing right now with AI is we're setting up custom AI role plays. We have a partnership with a company called Replay.sale. And what they do is they create AI agents to do role playing with. So because the biggest thing in the fitness group is it's a subscription-based model, right? It's a continuity program for your customers to keep coming back. And so how do they have those conversations when someone says, hey, I'm interested in canceling my membership? So like for me, I've been on the road. I mean, I keynoted IFA. I keynoted at this Canadian Franchise Association. I was the opening keynote there. And I looked at my charge for one of my fitness memberships. And I'm like, do I want to pay $122 a month for this fitness membership? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Because even if I go one time, it's not their fault. I'm not going to let that go. But I do know that some of the franchisees have had trouble. How do you have those conversations, right? How do you do it? So we created a role play where franchisees can have their front management staff and their trainers and their fitness professionals use AI to get conversational training up to speed so they can reduce attrition. And so I don't know whether you're using AI to do that, but you might want to look into whether you have your own resource or not, but how AI can help with the training part of it, because then they're not trained on the customer doing it, the bad experience. They're able to do that.
Yeah, no, we are. AI is going to change. It's already changing the world, the universe, but all that taken into account, I agree with you, and we are using it, and it's really working for us, especially with like real estate and selection. But it also backs up to the basics, like the visits and putting yourself in a member's shoes if you're a franchisee. I always say my visits. Yeah, my visit always starts in the parking lot. And before I walk in, I'm not on my phone. I'm looking. I'm engaging. I'm looking at everything around me. I'm looking at the is there a tree blocking our sign? All the things that it starts from the parking lot, and then you come in. So my advice would be take advantage of all the things that you can from a technology standpoint, but pay attention to your business like you're a customer, like you're a member. Even if you just open your eyes and get off your phone as you're there, and pay attention to what's going on in the class and or business, whatever it is. But you'd be surprised if you learn something different. I mean, I remember I took over customer service a long time ago, and I read once that CEOs don't even involve themselves with customer service ever, and they have no idea what the department looks like. And to me, that's a crime, because that's where your unhappy customers are calling into. Rarely a happy customer is calling in, but that's, to me, always like the pain point. Like, okay, people are telling us they have a problem. That's where I think everybody should be focused on. Like, that should be a priority. I took customer service. Number one, we called into customer service and learned that we were probably 5 times longer than we should have been just to get to somebody. We were in French, and we were just rambling on and all these different things. So we cut that by 75% the time. And then we elevated that whole department and gave them power. So when you have a problem, like if there's a problem and it's not getting done, you come up to my office and come in and see me about it. Like, so that change really helped us back then. And we have the same mentality here. So we're just building an operation. But a lot of franchisees and business folks have so much going on, and they're in the weeds, and and even if they're doing well, they lose sight of how can we be better? Because that's the other thing. A lot of people, we're doing great, we're crushing it, but can you be better? If you had window signs up, or your sign light was working, or it wasn't a tree blocking your sign on the back of your location there. Have you engaged with your community, like you mentioned earlier? Like, what have you done? Well, great. You're a great idea. So just do it. That's the key. So just put yourself in the shoes of, the member, and really take a step back and open your eyes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode, Tom. You shared some timeless insights, some fundamental things that I think our listeners can go back and do. It's not rocket science. It's just about execution, right? It's just like I can't remember what I heard on TikTok, or someone said, thinking about going to the gym is not going to the gym. Thinking about eating better is not eating better. It's the execution. So it's just like this. You're listening to a podcast, but thanks for listening, but I actually want you to go out and execute. So thanks for being here today, Tom.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ford.
All right, so thanks for tuning in to Fordify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.